Well, it's finally here, the 2012 Keystone State fantasy season. I am your host, Frank Guerra. Behind the boards is Ariana, my lovely daughter, who's been a major contributor to this podcast. And quite frankly, without her, I would not be able to do anything on this iPad. Today we're going to talk mostly about the draft from a few weeks back, and we're going to talk about the season and Week 1 previews. First with the draft, taking a peek, Matt had the very first overall pick, selecting Aaron Rodgers, pretty much a no-brainer pick. Solid pick, many touchdowns, many yards. Ray Rice, first running back off the board, going to Dustin. Many different selections there. A lot of people taking Arian Foster there, Brady. This is a big quarterback league, so getting a big quarterback's really good. But also too is you not getting behind the eight ball with the running backs. Rob taking third, he took Arian Foster. Again, pretty much a no-brainer pick with Rice and both Rodgers off the board. The only one I can see even going there could be Shady or maybe even Brady. 4, I had the fourth pick. Kind of shocking everybody, even myself. Hopefully I'll be not biting myself in the ass over this pick. Taking Darren McFadden. Huge potential, big upside. Very big risk as well, too. I've told many people that I've drafted with and against that if he stays healthy all 16 games, I really think he'll be the overall top running back. I really do. Mr. Monday Night, my brother Dan, with the 5th pick, taking Brady, second quarterback off the board. I think Brady's going to end up being the best quarterback this year, in my own opinion. I think he'll end up having the most yards. I think he'll also have a great chance of getting back to that 50 touchdown mark that he had back in 2007 with the great Randy Moss. Bill, the Philadelphia native, no-brainer here, taking Shady. Probably the second or third, arguably, best back coming in on all the chalkboards prior to the draft. C.J. Birchfield taking the number 1 receiver, probably in a category all by himself, Calvin Johnson, Megatron. Huge numbers. I had him last year. The only downside to him is he is slightly injury prone. A lot of weeks going into the games, questionable, probable, doubtful sometimes. I think you'll see a lot of double and, crazy it sounds, triple teams this year. He's that good. Drew Brees going 8th to Nads. Again, big quarterback in the first round. There's, in my opinion, a significant drop after Brees at the quarterback position, in my own opinion. Brees is probably the last one of the 3 that you can count on, bank on, near 300 yards and 2 to 3 touchdowns every single week. Darren with the 9th pick, Matthew Stafford. Numbers were off the board last year, 5,000 yards, pass-first offense, gets to throw to Megatron. Very hard to argue with that pick, especially on how much of a decrease the quarterback position goes after Rodgers, Brady, and Brees. Nick Mask closing out the first round. Again, another quarterback, a big run on quarterbacks here at the end. Taking Cam Newton, beast mode. Really a huge threat to run, throw. Does pretty much everything. Is a big hulkier version of Michael Vick, and be really tough for him to repeat what he did last year. His numbers were off the charts, but if there's anybody can do it, it could be someone like Cam Newton. He's a heck of an athlete. Not going to review every single pick for the rest of the draft, but a lot of picks they like there. Really surprised. Adrian Peterson went as high as he did. Game time decision for this week. And got to tell you, really surprised, too, that Chris Johnson went all the way to 17. I know he had a subpar year last year. The new coach, new O-line, gotten Steve Hutchinson, a full training camp. I really think we're going to see the old CJ2K this year. Finishing out the rest of the draft, I don't think there's one team particularly that's loaded, and I really don't think there's any team that is terribly bad. Some others better off than others. Taking a look at the Week 1 matchups, starting off with Healy's Heroes at Matt, the 3-time champion Wildcats. Matt have a 17-0 lead going into Sunday's games and Monday's games. 17 came from Miles Austin on Wednesday night. Looking to the two teams together, Rivers and Rogers, definitely give it to Rogers there. Foster and Steven Jackson. Foster says he's questionable. If he's healthy, I still like him over Steven Jackson. Fitzgerald and Julio Jones. I like Julio Jones. Thinks he's a beast. Have a huge year. Jordy Nelson, Antonio Brown. I think Brown gets the catches and the yards. I think Jordy gets us the touchdowns. Should be a coin flip there. Isaac Redmond, Miles Austin. Like I said, Austin already played. I like Miles there over Redmond. Roddy White, Percy Harvin. I kind of like Harvin slightly better than White. Although, again, I think White has the potential to have way more catches and way more yards. But, Harvin runs the ball, kick returns, punt returns, and starts and is Minnesota's number 1 receiver. Finley and Fred Davis. Again, Davis with the catches, Finley touchdowns. Eagles D and Vikings D. I love Eagles D against Cleveland with, going against Whedon. And Vikings D against Jacksonville. Still a good matchup against Gabbard. He's a bum. But still got MJD floating around there. Site has Rob predicted the win by 2, 164-162. I like Matt to win. I don't think it's going to be that high scoring in the 160s, but I do like Matt to win. Takes us to our next matchup, CJ Birchfield. Team Birchfield at Mr. Monday Night, Dan Guerra. Matt Ryan, Tom Brady. Brady gets the nod there. Jamal Charles, Adrian Peterson. I like Charles. Peterson game time decision. Stevie Johnson, Frank Gore. I like Gore. Malcolm Floyd, Deshaun Jackson. I like Jackson, but Haddon's probably going to be on Jackson, but I still give the nod to Jackson. Roy Halou, Demarius Thomas at the third flex position. I don't like anybody in Washington except RG3. I like Demarius Thomas there, especially if he's on Ike. Calvin Johnson, Hakeem Nicks. Hakeem Nicks, subpar night on Wednesday. Still give it to Megatron. He should have a huge game against St. Louis. Jimmy Graham and Aaron Hernandez. While it's pretty much a coin flip, I love Aaron Hernandez. I think he'll be better than Gronkowski this year overall. Probably a little less touchdowns, but more catches, I think. But I got to give it to Graham. He's a monster. Bears and Texans. Give the edge of the Texans D. They're up against Miami. Tannehill's a bum. And Bears against Indy. Luck is just as good as advertised. Site has CJ in a blowout, 153-123. I like CJ to win, but I don't think it'll be by that big of a margin. Next matchup, we're going to Thrice is Nice, which is Dustin at Have Fun. Donation, Have Fun. Darren, brother against brother. Manning and Stafford. I like Stafford, even though Manning's already played. Rice and Sproles. Love Rice. Turner and Brandon Marshall. I love Brandon Marshall. I think he's going to be a top 5 receiver this year. Colston and Meacham. I like Colston there. It says he's questionable, but if he plays, I think he'll be better than Meacham. Reggie Bush against Garcon. I like Garcon a lot. I think he's going to be RG3's main wide receiver target. Jennings and Welker. Oh, man, pretty much a coin flip. I like Welker probably slightly more. Pettigrew, Gonzalez. Both bums, couldn't be on either one of any of my teams. Ravens D and Seattle Seahawks D. I like Seattle D slightly more against Arizona. Ravens are going up against Cincinnati. Love AJ Green. It's going to be a tough matchup for them. Site has Dustin 137 losing to Darren 144. I think that's probably pretty accurate. I I think I would give Darren the slight nod on that, and I think that's probably pretty accurate. Next matchup, we are going to go to Nick Mast at Nads. This matchup will feature Cam Newton versus Drew Brees, probably the best quarterback matchup of the week. Brees again, probably with throwing yards. Newton maybe just as many touchdowns, but of a different variety. Maybe one or two passing and one or two running. Forte and Murray. Murray already played. I like Forte in a PPR league, which this is. I like Forte a little more. Fred Jackson, Dez Bryant. I like Dez a little better than Fred Jackson. Fred Jackson against a tough Jets run D. Steve Smith, Carolina against Macklin. I like Steve Smith there against Tampa Bay. Ahmad Bradshaw already played, scored a touchdown, and a nice solid week for a third flex position against Vincent Jackson. Still like Bradshaw there. A.J. Green, huge on him. I think he's going to be a beast this year. I like him slightly over Andre Johnson. Jermaine Gresham and Vernon Davis, not even in comparison. I like Davis here. Lions D against St. Louis, Steelers D against Denver. The only reason why I would lean a little towards the Lions, simply because of going against the Rams opposed to the Steelers at Denver without Ryan Clark, and more importantly, Denver doesn't have Tebow with Manning. Site has Nick Mass 158 to Nads is 149. I do like Nads slightly more. I think he has a little bit more of a favorable matchups. I think he has more scoring potential. On paper, it looks like Nick Mass is the winner. I'm leaning towards Nads this week. Matchup of the week, no surprise. Bill at Frank. Bill's out to a commanding lead after a big night from Romo on Wednesday night. Romo 34, threw a bunch of different touchdowns, hit Ogletree out of nowhere twice. I like Vic a lot, but it's going to be tough for Vic to be a 34, no doubt about that. Going to the running back matchups, I think I'm more than favorable there with McFadden against San Diego on Monday night. The late game, Chris Johnson against the Patriots. The Patriots do have an improved D, but they're pretty weak on the ground. He has Shady. Shady against the Browns, that could get very ugly. Wallace against probably Champ Bailey. I would assume he's going to see a lot of Champ Bailey on Sunday night. Dwayne Bowe, Brandon Lloyd. I'm very big on Brandon Lloyd this year. I think he is going to steal a lot of catches and a lot of touchdowns from Welker. Not that Walker's not going to be good, but I think Brandon Lloyd's going to be very good. Just makes too much sense with McDaniels back in the mix and in New England, and him actually finally having a real quarterback and Brady throwing to him. I think Lloyd's going to be huge this year. Reggie Wayne and Torrey Smith. I like Smith slightly more than Wayne, although I do think Wayne's going to be going to be decent, having a young Peyton Manning thrown to him. Gronkowski and Gates. Flip a coin. I think Gates has the potential to have more catches and more yards. Gronkowski again with the touchdowns. Victor Cruz and Eric Decker. I probably like Cruz slightly more than Decker. It's going to be tough rooting for Decker against the Steelers Sunday night, but the Steelers are susceptible to a lot of catches and touchdowns to receivers. Bills D and Giants D. I like Bills D. They're going against the going against the Jets. Sanchez is struggling tremendously. Tebow, God help him if he comes into the game. That's always a disaster. Site has me winning 152-144. I think that's probably pretty accurate. I think if Vic has a big day and McFadden has a big day, I think I win handily. But Bill's a tough team. Bill's always good every year. Always has a solid crew. I think it's going to come down to Monday night and me need McFadden and Antonio Gates. So